Hello people! Look who got a camera. I still don't have an intro, but I have a camera now. We're doing lettering today. It's pretty simple. It's a mono-weight cursive font lettering with hair attached to it. That's pretty much it. So I hope you learned something out of it. It's pretty much like beginner friendly. It's not really high level at all. So hopefully this will be helpful. First thing first, usually every good lettering artist will tell you that it all starts on paper, which is clearly not what I'm doing, but let's move on. I'm just letting you know. So the red lines are guides, and this is usually what you do on paper first, and you make sure that you have a curve that is what you want at the end. And of course here I want something that's straight, so I have two horizontal lines. Those two are defining the height of the letter, and by height I mean the space between the baseline and what is called the X height. The X height is the top of, for example, an A or an O, but it doesn't include, for example, the ascending or descending part of an H or a J, for example. So only the center part of pretty much any letter. Yes, any letter actually. And the vertical lines are used to help me define where the stems are. And the stem on a letter is the big vertical line that you have, for example, an L. An L would be an actual stem. That's what it is. It's just a vertical line. And having those is really, really helpful. They don't have to be perfectly vertical, perfectly horizontal. It doesn't matter. As you can see here, my horizontal is not a horizontal line at all. But having them defined will help you do something that works and that looks good in the end, that doesn't go like all over the place. Also, when I like the dynamic of a letter, I usually duplicate it. So for example, the F is a duplicate for the second F. And a little bit later in the video, it shows that I am also using that F as the loop of my L. So you can duplicate letters and then change whatever you need to change depending on what you're turning that letter into. And after a while, what you really want to do is to make sure that your entire word or sentence is cohesive. So stop looking at one single letter and look at everything as a whole. And this is going to be really useful and really important. And if you're a beginner, just know that it really takes a while to be good at this, or even decent at this for that matter. It takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of patience, and usually when you start, you hate what you've done even like 2 weeks prior. It's really intense, and the growth is kind of linear. Like, you get better by experiencing, by finding your own mistakes and knowing what you should or should not do. And this is extremely important. So if you want to be good at this, just practice. And the second thing that is also super important is getting used to knowing typography. If you already know it, that's great. It's going to be really useful. If you don't, knowing about typography is going to be a huge help, because you're training your eye at something that is even harder in typography than it is in lettering. Lettering, because it's usually cursive and usually something that looks handwritten, is different, because it can be like not perfect. But if you're working with fonts and you're working in typography, it really has to be perfect, otherwise it really shows. So if you want to train, there's something online that called the Kerning Game. The Kerning Game is amazing. So it's basically a game where you have a word and you have to move the letter inside of it until it gets like perfect and you get a score. So this is something that can help you train and also have a record of your training, because if you note at the end every score that you end up getting, you can see if you're getting better or worse. Usually it gets better at kerning, and this is a really important step in getting better in typography and lettering in general. So the next thing you want to do before adding all the hair is making sure that your stroke is scalable when you're actually, well, scaling the object up or down. And to make sure that this is well checked, you have to check it either in Illustrator, it's going to be under Preferences, and if you're in Affinity, it's going to be under Stroke, in the context toolbar. Once this is done and you're sure that your object is scalable, you will have to just add a few hair, and to do that it's just a filled shape. That's it. There's nothing fancy here, it's just a filled shape. Now you can either place a bunch of shapes on top, which is what I did, or you can retrace the entire letter, so you don't have to care about the stroke that's under your shape at all. That's up to you. It just depends where your product is going. If it's going to be a logo that's used by someone else, it's probably the best way to have one filled shape, and they don't have to care about hidden stuff in layer that are beneath the main one. I hope this was helpful, that you learned a few things about typography and lettering, or at least if you want to pursue that or not. Let me know in the comments what you're doing with that. I always like to see what you're doing. I always like to see your links and your different profiles and everything. And I think it's really nice for others to see your work. It's not always easy to be like represented online and to have like a platform where you can share stuff. So please do. I always like to see your links. Play the Kerning Game. It's a great thing. I'm gonna link it down below. It's really, really fun. I mean, it's like nerdy fun. If you're not into typography, this is probably the lamest thing you've ever heard of, but let's just say you're interested. Well, I think that's it. I will see you next time, hopefully with an intro or not, but at least the new camera's here, so it doesn't matter that much, does it? Yeah, that's it. Have a great day.